This is Goku4071 here with what I'm probably going to be doing more of, my ideas for future TV shows. Now, these are going to be things that I want them to make TV shows about existing material. And first I'm going to talk about Star Trek. Now, I will say this very quickly. I am not the biggest, I'm not a Trekkie. I don't know everything about Star Trek. I'm going to say things that don't work. Trek fans, please tell me why they don't work in a comment below, and I might revise my idea and do another video because I don't want it to be incorrect, but this is just an idea from my limited knowledge of Star Trek. I've seen all of Voyager. I've seen half of Next Generation. I've seen the end, but I've seen half. I've seen about half of Deep Space Nine. I've seen all of Enterprise, so I have some knowledge of Star Trek. Okay, my idea for the TV show. The timeline of my idea of a new Star Trek TV series will be The Next Jump. It's going to be about 30 to 40 years after Nemesis. And the show is primarily, its big villain is the Borg. There is going to be another villain later on in the series, but the big major villain that they deal with in the beginning is the Borg. The pilot, if I got to do whatever I wanted to do, the pilot would be basically the Romulans coming into Starfleet. Why they come into Starfleet, why they become part of Starfleet, is because the Borg attacks one of their outposts, and they realize that this war is never going to be won by the Romulans. This war is never going to be won by the Federation. But if they team up, they might be able to do something together. Alone, they're going to die. This is this horrible enemy that neither of them can defeat. And so the Enterprise goes and does the negotiations that end up becoming the Romulans and Starfleet. But Romulans are not just in Starfleet. They're actually very shakily in Starfleet. The Romulans are basically have a treaty, and they're going to ally themselves until the Borg is destroyed. But it's not like they're friends. It's not like the Vulcans. It probably could be considered very similar to the Klingons. When I originally came up with this concept, I thought Gamma Quadrant. But because it's already been used, whatever space that they've never used, they've never went into, there's where I want them to be. If they went into for an episode, that's fine. But I want them to go somewhere they've never gone. And basically, they finally learned how to use some of this technology from Voyager. And they've built this Nexus-class starship. This gigantic, massive starship called Enterprise. Of course. This is the next Enterprise. And it's going to be captained by a fairly new captain. This is not going to be Captain Picard type captain that's senior captains, captained a lot of vessels, done a lot of things. This is going to be more of the Riker, the guy who's been a first officer and goes to say, I want to be on this vessel. I like this idea of what you guys are doing. I want to go to the next part of the galaxy. Can I be the first officer, or I will take any assignment? And they stick him with captain. So this is a very new captain, and I want him to feel like Riker in Season 1. Even though he's been a first officer, I do want to feel more like Riker in Season 1, where he does make mistakes, and he doesn't always do everything right, because that's one thing I have with Star Trek. One of my big problems is there's not a lot of human characters in it. And that's what Deep Space Nine did well. They give you human characters, people with flaws, people that are human. The first officer is a Romulan. Yes, a Romulan. The first Romulan officer. And everybody on the bridge, except for the first officer, except for the captain, not the first officer, sorry about that, is a different alien. We got our Vulcan, we got our Klingon, we have our Andorian, whatever. Yeah, definitely have an Andorian. We never had an Andorian on a starship ship as a officer, and I'm sure there are Andorians in Starfleet. They've been around since the conception of Starfleet, so there should be at least one Andorian officer in Starfleet. And the show is about them going and exploring this new quadrant. And in about Season 4, they introduce this big villain that is species number 1. The species that turned the Borg into what they are. Because my idea was, why did the Borg become the Borg? because Species Zero was kidnapping alien species and basically trying to judge the power of every alien species. They periodically go to planets and they take the people, and then they probably do some mind probe. This is just a conception. It's not a fully functioned villain yet. And then they decide what threat level they are, and basically a bunch of them attacked them, took their knowledge, and felt that a single individual could never defeat this, so they started to assimilate all their thoughts, and that's my conception of how the Borg became the Borg. And they become our megalithic, gigantic villain that can't be defeated. This is a villain that you run from. You don't fight, they can't fight them. Basically, the ship itself is this gigantic ship that has a science vessel inside that in the beginning of the show, it's simply there so they can do exploration while they're going out if they find it. But later on, I thought, after they find this new villain, a group of Borg actually become part of their ship, and once they get back home and they turn them into humans again, they actually go around in this ship, and they actually do it. The Borg get separated from the collective and end up becoming part of this crew. Also, another idea I had was how to end the show. And yes, I have finally figured out an ending. It took me a while, but I think the natural ending is the end of the Borg. And I'm not saying they defeat the Borg by the end of the series, but you see the beginning of the end. And how I kind of came up with that idea is the finale would be a finale. That's one of my other biggest problems with a lot of Star Trek shows, is that the last episode isn't an actual ending. Other shows have done this too, and I don't like that. I want the ending to be the ending. I want it to be this big, multiple episode story arc of how everything comes to fruition and how this is how it all ends. And my idea of how that would be is, from some chance coincidence, they get into this thing. I don't know what it is. It's some spatial distortion of some kind. And when they get into it, they come into this new plane. And next to them, they see a lot of Federation ships. And all the Federation ships are hailing each other and trying to figure out who they are. And you realize that it's every Enterprise ever to exist. Not just the present ones, but even the future ones. And basically, to stop it in the end, our captain of this ship has to be assimilated, but from some way he assimilates himself so he can actually control the Borg. And this is only the beginning, but this is how the Borg is defeated. That his assimilation is the way that they are actually defeated in the end. And I think this would be an awesome ending for a TV series, or for a Star Trek TV series, in a way that you get to see all these different ships. And I don't know how quite you would do it, because you couldn't bring back every actor, but you could find something, and you get to see different captains, and you get to see the different ideas of the captains over the time. And I think this would be great. And I think this would be an awesome ending for a Star Trek series. This is Goku for Edison1. In closing, please leave a video comment or response. If you want to, Star Trek fans, please don't butcher me for ideas that I did wrong. Tell me what I did wrong. I mean, I'm not a huge Star Trek fan, and this is my idea. Obviously, Star Trek fans know what is best for the series because they are Star Trek fans, and they probably got their geek nerd things. So, I mean, this is my idea. This is, if I was able to write a Star Trek show, this is kind of what I would do. And if you have any ideas for future talks about TV shows that you want my idea about what I would do, please, I love to talk about them. I love to come up, I'm a writer myself, I love to come up with ideas. Obviously, I don't write these things down because they're not important to me. I write my own stuff down, but I still come up with my own fan fiction stuff in my spare time to kind of see what I would want to do. Okay, goodbye, and have a good day.